Hello, I'm Brooke Litton. I'm the Director of Marketing for Gordon Highlander, and I kind of brought everybody here today to participate and celebrate Women in Construction Week. The goal for me is to kind of help inspire and inform women who are interested in the construction industry and even kind of share experiences and get to know each other a little bit more and kind of talk through some great achievements since it is Women in Construction Week. So I will kick it off to Marianne. If you want to give a brief intro of you, your role, and company you're with.
Will do. Thank you so much for having us here today. So my name is Marianne Shid, also known as Marianne Shear. I am a project designer for O'Brien Architects, which is a commercial architecture and interiors firm. We do everything starting from retail to industrial, multifamily, office, you name it, except educational and healthcare. So if you have a project, you have a vision, let us know, we can achieve it. Within that, like I mentioned, I do project design. We have everything from project management, design, interior design, planning, etc. So we offer a diverse portfolio of services as well. So,
All right, Andrew.
Hi, my name's Andrea Pinder. I'm the Director of Business Development with Carrco. We do painting, drywall, and flooring. We touch pretty much every market sector there is, big projects, small projects, everything in between. We also have our MBE, SBE, all those certifications that sometimes are needed on projects. And we're a pretty big firm. We have about 40 people in the office and 500 people out on job sites. So we're a pretty big company if you guys need us for big projects.
I'm Lydia Donnell. I'm with Root Engineering. I'm VP of Business Development, and we provide mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineering design services to typically the architect, but occasionally the owner and the developer themselves.
So the reason why I kind of brought everybody here today is because as the general contractor, we work with all three of your companies directly and have a very intimate and beneficial relationship, whether it's O'Brien, Carrco, Root. We kind of bring everything together. And so I figured that would add so much more to the discussion and add different insights based on what we specifically do within construction. With that, I know that each of you has a unique journey that led you to your current role. Could you share what initially sparked your interest in construction or architecture and how you entered the field? And I will start with Andrea.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys know this story. So I was actually an English major in college. Right out of college, I taught 7th grade English in the projects. And then I realized that I really love photography and I always wanted to try it out. Like, let's just see, I literally have nothing to lose. So I actually own my own photography business for about 12 years. The industry started changing just a little bit and I thought, man, like I can do marketing, I can do taxes, I can do accounting, but like where do you take that business ownership into the next step? So I put some applications out for an engineering firm and they took a risk on me and brought me on as their marketing person. And then I clearly realized that we needed some business development also going on. So that's kind of the long and short of how I ended up in the industry. So, yeah.
And then I'll go Marianne. Sorry, I'm switching it up here.
No, this is what I love about this conversation. So I think we've all got really interesting paths. And one misconception is that architects have a very linear path. My experience, I was born in Caracas, Venezuela, so South America, a long way from here, the real South. And, we always think of, we have a certain, a list of steps that we want to take to where we want to get to. And obviously, God laughs every time you plan. So long story short, country's not doing well. So I ended up going to college over there for architecture, thinking that I was a creative soul. I just wanted to do something that was harder. And that was kind of the hardest thing I could find creative-wise. I got into architecture, did college over there, graduated, had to figure out, what is the next step in my life? And again, steps. I thought I was going to go to get a master's degree in Spain because it just seemed so cool to live the Europe European life. Long story short, I came to visit family member over here, and we'll talk about mentors I know in a second, but he advised me to maybe try out something here, because I had been back and forth and visited my whole life. So I did, he was, talking about what the next step was, I did find it exciting to maybe explore an opportunity here, and he introduced me to somebody in the field, in the architecture field, and ended up getting an internship here. So it's been almost 10 years since then, and I had to call back and say, Mom, you know how it was just a summer thing? Oh, yeah, I'm not coming back. So Dallas has been home ever since, and, I've been doing commercial architecture since then, have, been at a couple of different firms and really enjoyed it so far. So
That's amazing. I love that being able to pivot is such a huge part of your journey, just not only in your career, but in life in general. So, Lydia?
Being nimble on your feet. Totally. No, that's a big part of my story. I started my professional career in commercial banking, and only ended up in that industry because of somebody that I met while playing golf. So golf is a great networking tool. You will always hear me advocate for that. But got into commercial banking, was there for a year and a half at a bank here local in Dallas, and met my now boss at this engineering firm as a prospect of mine while I was at the bank. And so he basically kind of recruited me, whatever you want to call it, headhunted, I guess you could say, and brought me over into engineering. So I am not an engineer and never planned to be an engineer. But the neat thing about my role in business development is that you don't have to know the tactical, technical skills of the engineer. So that's how I ended up at Root Engineering, and I'm happy to be here. But yes, it's crazy how you don't make these plans, God does, and you just find yourself where you are, and you just make the most of it.
So, for, I guess, going off of what you said, being in business development, how do you think that, because it's not your first thought of like our trade partnerships are so important in the GC world, and Gordon Highlander really values, and we actually have our own department that kind of focuses on our relationships with each of our trade partners. So being in a business development role, how do you think that brought you to being in a trade, I guess, company like flooring and drywall? I know Carrco does a ton of that. So how did your role in the business development lead you to the companies that y'all are at now?
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. In my role at the bank, I was seeking out business owners that perhaps needed funding. In this case, I was interested in offering an SBA loan because he was buying out his partner. And so I asked him to lunch, and we got together, and he was like, well, I don't probably need your loan right now. I'm not interested in that, but would you be interested in coming to work for me? So I think being in business development is the only thing that even allowed me to get into this new industry. Never thought I would be in commercial construction or real estate. But I think just always saying yes to those opportunities and taking leaps of faith and stepping out into faithfulness can get you a long way.
Yeah, that's amazing. Andrew, anything?
Yeah, so I think for me, when I was years ago at the engineering firm, and I asked my engineers, are you taking clients to lunch? Like, how are you continuing to get the business? And they're like, no, we don't want to leave the office. That's scary. You know? And so I remember saying, well, but we need to take our clients out. Like, we have to entertain them and build the relationship. And I can vividly remember my boss saying, do you think you can do that? I'm like, yes, I got this. I can make this happen. And so that's when I fully moved into the BD role instead of just marketing.
Right.
And then landing at Carrco, I actually presented to their office about 4 years ago because I did a presentation all about business development. And so the owner would have somebody come in once a quarter who was a subject matter expert. And so for the last 4 years, Javier has been kind of nudging me like, hey, can we just talk? And I would say, no. Yeah. And then finally I had the conversation, and I never thought I would leave the professional services side and move to the trade partner world. And I'm so glad that I did.
Yeah. That's awesome. Marianne, what drew you to architecture, and how did you transition into the project manager role?
So originally when I first started, like I said, I just knew I was a creative person. I didn't know what that there's people who immediately know what they want to do in life, and then there's people who try everything. I was one of those, like, I kind of knew what I wanted to do, but it was more of like, let's do the hardest thing I could find on the creative side and then have options at the end. So one thing I guess I didn't realize when I first got into architecture was how big the field is. So like you said, we all are a part of this like large ecosystem. And just because you go to architecture school doesn't mean you're only going to do architecture. And even within architecture, you know, you can do the design side, you can do the production side where you get more into the details and more, you know, you're more of a technical person. I'm more the design people person. So what that meant for me is I was always outside of work and inside, I was creating these relationships, and it wasn't even for business. It was just more to grow yourself, to grow as part of that, your company and your brand. But it was just part of, you know, there's two ways of how we bring in clients. One of them is you already have those relationships. And obviously I wasn't from here, so I had to work on that a little bit. And then the second one is once you do work with somebody, you offer an experience that's different for other people. So for us, it wasn't really about, you know, taking people out to lunch. Some of those relationships on the architecture side come from the work that you do already and the experience you offer and how you differentiate your experience to somebody else competing against you. So a lot of what I liked about architecture was, you know, the initial pitch, the concept, the design. How are you changing people's lives? How are we all collaborating to make a better environment for people, whether that be in healthcare or, you know, residential? There's so many options. I think I like the idea of architecture because of that. There was just so much to do. And even today, you know, I feel like now growing into this newer role of, you know, forming these relationships, you still find new things within the industry that I like. So
Awesome. Yeah. Well, so I want to go into kind of the growth and learning opportunities in the industry. So, and specifically, since it's Women in Construction Week, kind of how like our companies have allowed us to do that. So I will say at Gordon Highlander, our mission statement is to build a legacy of helping others reach their God-given potential. And that's for everyone. So what I love about being at Gordon Highlander is that everyone really has the opportunity to grow. And we really want to push that across everybody at the company. So with that, I know our industry offers unique opportunities for different learning and all of the different organizations that we're a part of. Can each of you share an experience or moment in career that highlighted a valuable growth opportunity or learning experience?
I have something that comes to mind. And it was more of an internal opportunity, but it was still very challenging and very growth-filled for me. And it was when, over the summer, we had our offsite retreat. We went to Broken Bow, got a cabin. It was a great time. But my boss approached me, and he was like, "You're VP of Business Development. I need you to give a presentation on our marketing strategy for the next year and why we're going to go into these certain sectors and where we're headed as a company." And I was like, "Me? You want me to give that?" It was a bit of like an imposter syndrome moment. Yeah, I was like, I'm not equipped for that. Like, I don't know that information. And he was like, "Well, you're going to figure it out. You're going to tell us where we're headed." And so that, for me, was a very growth-filled, defining moment because I had to acknowledge that I was the subject matter expert in business development, and that meant for our firm as a whole. And it was, you know, I had to do a lot of research. I had to prepare heavily for it, but preparing and then actually giving the presentation, as you guys know, public speaking is not the easiest thing in the world, but you, like we were talking about before this, you always grow through it, and being uncomfortable is the only way that you're able to reach that sheer potential. So for me, that was a very growth-filled moment, and that was an internal example. But still gave me the kind of empowered me in a sense and helped me recognize that I can be the subject matter expert in my field.
That's awesome.
I think, and we might piggyback on this, I feel like my biggest growth opportunities have come through mentoring. So I've been part of mentorship programs for probably, 10 years or so, being a mentor, being a protege, being both roles, because I feel like we can always continue to learn.
Absolutely.
And I know throughout the years, I've had mentors who have challenged me, like, "Andrea, I think you can really do XYZ." And it's like, oh my gosh, no, this is going to be scary. But I know I'm going to see them the following month and I'll need to have some sort of result from that. And so I feel like that's where a lot of my growth opportunities have come from. So
Yeah, no, same. To your point, we actually met at Ladies in CRE, which is an outside organization to where we work at. And just seeking out these opportunities outside of work, I think that support women in general, but just getting yourself involved with a group that you really believe in outside of work, I think it's, it builds community, it builds trust and respect outside of your role at work. And that's helped me, again, grow outside of the job I do on a daily basis. I did want to say also, when I first moved here, and I think we all have different scenarios of this, but everybody's, always thinking, oh, women are a minority. I was also Latina, like all these things. And to me, honestly, I didn't know anybody, so I didn't have much to lose, right? So that was my attitude going into things. I think the biggest growth and opportunity that I've gotten is, yes, the mentors who've believed in me and pushed me to be in uncomfortable situations, but it's also been the realization of you have nothing to lose, put yourself out there, opportunity dances with those on the dance floor. Like, you gotta...
I like that.
Yeah, so it was one of those things where I love that quote, and one day I was like, you know what? You can't expect things to change if you don't seek the right moments out.
And say yes.
And say yes. Say yes. A lot of people, again, talking specifically about women in our field, there is a lot of differences from men in the field, but I think it's also an opportunity. So there's not as many of us. We do love working with each other too. Like, we already have a community within that. So taking advantage of certain things that people see as differences or, as a minority, I think has made me kind of switch gears and understand how we can also get ahead.
Yeah.
And find other opportunities that not everybody has. So
That's great. I liked your analogy. I love that one. So one of my, and I'll share because I think that knowing so many different aspects of people in what they do, what their company does. Obviously, I am in construction as the GC, but knowing y'all, I feel like I've learned so much as it relates to engineering, architecture, and trade partnership. So is there anything on, like, with working with the GC that y'all have gained insight to, and collaborating with different women or even men that have helped grow your understanding of the construction process and the industry in general?
yeah, I can start.
Yeah.
I think we're all really good about, we're good at our jobs and what we do, but we're even better depending on the team we form. So I think especially at O'Brien Architects, we're really good about partnering up with people to achieve the best results for the client, and that, snowballs into all of us. So obviously we need a GC, we need a sub, we need the MEP. It's such a bigger team than people realize. So I think seeking those partners out and collaborating with them, I think, has made for more successful projects than, there's this joke about it, like GCs and architects are always, fighting about stuff, but we're on the same side. So when we work together, it's so much more enjoyable, and it offers a better experience and end result for the client. So I'm all for partnering with people, and especially because we work together a lot in engineering and stuff. Like, it's just, whether you like it or not, you need the big team. So
Because I love when, like, thinking of it as like a circle and like one team, one fight type of thing, rather than you're just have one client. We're all need to work together for a seamless. Well, not every project is seamless, but right. But just for a cohesive, efficient, successful project and team, I think that's huge. Did y'all have any other thing you wanted to add? I'll let you speak to that one.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we have this org chart or hierarchy that we all have in our head. This guy is at the top, and then it goes down, but it takes everybody. So, like you said, it really circles. It needs to be an org chart of a circle, not of a hierarchy.
Not a pyramid
thing. Obviously we have to have the people who are investing, spending the money to buy the land for us to build something on it. But we have to have them just as much as we need everybody. If we're missing an electrician, we're not going to have a building at the end of the day, So, I like when there's projects that work together that everybody knows, okay, we're all important, we're all needed, it's very important, or else the project just won't happen.
We don't typically work with GCs directly, but in a roundabout way through the architects we will. But I'll speak to just understanding the full scope of the industry, or I should say the life cycle of a project, and how it started, how it originates, and how it wraps up. It's been really nice to have groups like LCRE or crew or fill in the blank, because you get to meet all these different trade partners, and you get to meet people that, the bankers that are doing the funding, and then the architects that are coming in, and the GCs, and then other engineers, structural, landscape. You get to meet all the different parties involved, and it's really helped me get a better understanding of what the process actually looks like from start to finish. So shout out to LCRE for that.
Yes. So next, I kind of want to go through the role of your specific company in the construction process. So I know each of your companies play a different part in the process, and then could you each briefly describe what your company contributes to a typical project? And we'll start with Marianne.
Yeah. So I think here, at least, I'm the first one to, approach the project. So I mentioned we do planning. So that'll be step number one. So obviously a developer or client comes to us, and, we're involved in the feasibility studies. Like, they have the site, they're trying to figure out what works, what pencils out, what doesn't. So there's a lot of early on just massing studies to explore all these options. And once it pencils in, that's when we go vertical with it. And we start, thinking about placemaking, the community around it, context, how does that contribute to what we're designing? What does it look like, etc. So there's so many different pieces. It's literally a puzzle.
Yeah.
Playing Tetris sometimes of, you have a multifamily building, it's so many unit types, and how do these all, work with zoning? We work directly with city planners as well. So it's literally, we're a very small part of the beginning of it. And once we kind of know what we're doing, we immediately engage MEP and structural, and obviously civil, and everything else comes with it too. But that's when we rely on the engineering side to develop our ideas and make it, a living building, per se. So
that'd be a good segue.
Thing. Flow this way. Yeah, so what we do is the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing design for a commercial building. So we're laying all of the plan. We take the architect's plans that they develop, and we go in and we route in or design. I'm about an engineer, how all of that is going to flow together and be functional and be efficient. So it's pretty straightforward. I mean, like I said, we're typically working directly with the architects to coordinate their plans with our services. And as we all know, living in Texas, AC is very, very important. So we are laying the groundwork for all of that, and plumbing, right? So yeah, that's what we do.
Okay.
Well, and I'm last. So with painting, I'm pretty much last in the building. So then I feel like once all of those things, like, we kind of start bringing it to life with our paint and our wall coverings and those types of things. Like, that's when people are like, ooh, this pretty. With drywall, we're in a little bit earlier, but I feel like paint kind of brings it all together at the end. Yeah.
Well, and it's so much more than just like, oh, it makes it pretty. Like, it does affect mood, and there's so many studies behind, like, how does your interior environment kind of affect your efficiency, productivity. So I think you're, cutting yourself short, but there's so many things. Like, the paint color goes back to the overall design, and this, goes back to you guys with the GC being a partner and being able to tell us, this is a paint you can use because it's in our budget, like keeping us on track. Yeah. So it's a bunch of PMing and working together.
Yeah, I think.
A lot of coordination.
So talking through the roles of the companies, each of our companies, I know that it kind of starts, it depends on the type of project, right? Like, we do a lot of design build where we're working with the engineering firm and the architecture firm in the beginning of the construction process, just in order to save time and money in the long term with the client. And we'll even engage a lot of our trade partners super early on in the process. But for a typical project, I'll say that we are engaged by construction manager, whether it's through like architect and the client, and then we kind of pull together all of our resources to get pricing for all of the trades. So we will go out and help manage that whole process. So we're kind of the one-stop shop for painting, drywall, electrical, plumbing, all of the different trades kind of houses under us. So, and yeah, we kind of help with managing, organizing, hopefully. And totally. Marianne, in what ways does O'Brien Architects project design work integrate with the world of contractors?
So, like I mentioned, we look for strategic partnerships, and we're very thoughtful about when to bring a GC partner in. If it's a design build project, obviously we want y'all involved as early as possible. We want to work together. It depends on the project delivery method and a couple of things, but I think advice in general is like, partner up as soon as possible. As long as, we have the design intent and we are ready to show everybody where things go, basically, y'all tell us how to build it. So I think having that relationship and talking through the design intent always makes the end result better, because we can both strategize and talk about what we know a lot of together and figure it out together. So small example would be, we have this project right now where we had an ACM panel, so a specific material that we wanted to highlight, and you guys were more up to date on market trends and lead times and, talking to subs, and you have more information on a day-to-day basis than we do from a materials perspective. So, you guys came to us and said, well, we just ran through this. It was so expensive. Pricing didn't come back right. What about this other product? So just offering up that alternative led us to a better end result for the client, shorter lead time, better pricing, and same or better design aesthetics. So I think that's a small example of how we partner up, but it's a lot of, scheduling and pricing.
Right.
And there's so many pieces that come together that it makes it truly better to have somebody like you guys on board early,
instead of getting down the road and then realizing, okay, no, this is going to be way out of budget, and it won't arrive for another. I mean, we were looking at like 52-week lead time for some items way back when material shortage wasn't a thing.
Yeah, so even still, there's still some things we spec in that are still on a 52-week. So it's like,
and it's that. That's the problem. We have this internal goal right now at O'Brien called Adapt and Evolve. I think that applies really well to what we're talking about right now, because everything changes. So it might be 52 weeks right now, but then, we do it again and somebody says, no, it's now 20 weeks, or it changes so much that we rely so much on partners like you guys to tell us, what is the right direction. And we just try to keep with our original vision and design intent. So I think it makes it better to partner up for sure.
Earlier the better. Okay, so with that, I want to kind of go into the power of relationships and networking. I think that's kind of how we all met each other through different networking opportunities. I know they're crucial in this field. How have these aspects of different networking opportunities and organizations, how has that impacted your career growth, do you think? And I'll start with Andrea, because I feel like she's well-versed in their network.
Yeah, so we've all heard the phrase, you do business with people you know, like, and trust. And I mean, that's the truth. If we know, like, and trust them, then we will try to do business with them. So I think if you can find an organization that has a good group of people that you could get involved in, dive in as deep as you can and get involved and build the relationships. I don't think any of us would be where we're at in our career if we didn't have those relationships. I read a statistic a few years ago where it said from the time you meet someone until the time they give you a chance to propose on a project, it's 18 months. Wow. So just to propose on it, not to win the project with them. So, I mean, it takes a while to build a good relationship with people. And that's what we have to do in this industry in order to, we want to have great friendships, and then we also want to do work with those people. So it's kind of a win-win at the end of the day.
And it's building trust, and trust takes time to build. Like, apply it to, your spouse or your significant other. You didn't win their trust right away. It takes time, and people's reputations takes time to build. It's the same in business. I can speak to the power of networking in a few different ways. Specifically with Brooke, I met Brooke when I was at my previous role at Simmons Bank. And so we've known each other now for a year and a half, at least, probably 2 years.
Yeah.
But now that I'm in construction or I'm in the AEC industry, we've only grown our relationship because now we can work directly together. So we were able to maintain that relationship, and now here we are. And, obviously this is an awesome opportunity that I'm very thankful for, but that's part of the power of networking because we have maintained that relationship. Additionally, in a very similar way, I met one of our now clients when I was at my previous role. And met him. He was an architect. Obviously, when I was in banking, didn't really have a lot of work to do with architects, but I reached back out to him when I moved into this role, and it's very special to me because he was my very first proposal that was sent out from a relationship that I had built. And it was very quick too. It was like in 3 months. I was like, that's a lot quicker than 18 months. So I was like, but that speaks to the power of networking because I had met him all those, few years earlier, a year or whatever. So we had known each other. And so then once I moved into this role, it was quicker because I had maintained that network. So networking is everything. You never know how things are going to come back around. And it's usually the least likely suspects, I guess you can say, that end up benefiting you the most.
Mm-hmm. And I'll kind of go off that too. I think with me personally being at Gordon Highlander, I'm blessed with the opportunity to go out and do those things. I know that there's other companies out there that aren't as willing to allow you to kind of go out and be a part of all these different networks and organizations out of fear of, just
budget,
fear in general, right? And I think that with all of our companies, with O'Brien and Carrco and Root Engineering, I think that we work for some great people that allow us to go out and to do those networking opportunities and be a part of the organizations.
They allow it and they encourage it. And they encourage, that's a big thing too.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback off of that. So I think you guys have a more dedicated BD role, obviously, but it's also, from my perspective, everybody who works at your firm is doing BD. You are the brand, right? So to me, it just came naturally to get more involved with networking and events and things that I really care about outside of work. But I did want to shout out Sean O'Brien and O'Brien Architects in general are so supportive. They've actually pushed me to be in this year's Center for Leadership class at ULI.
That's amazing.
So Urban Land Institute has been eye-opening because I think there's so many groups out there. Like we all met at Ladies in CRE, and that's amazing too. But this one's really stuck out to me. So going back to what you said a while back ago, mentors have been truly special in kind of steering me a certain direction. And from there, being intentional about the time you spend and where you spend it, especially ULI this year has been, amazing from a networking perspective. So to, whoever's trying to get more involved with community or other groups, really do the research and see what you care about. Don't just go to all the happy hours and all these things. Like, you're trying to build relationship based on trust, but things you really care about. So you're trying to team up with people that think the same and want the same. So I think part of, the last 10 years has been kind of dissecting that and really honing in on, the time we have outside of work, which is limited. Also, where do you want to spend it? And having people to support that is truly a blessing. So
definitely. And I respect you for being in a role that's not dedicated solely to BD and still finding the time to do it and still prioritizing it.
Yeah.
And I know you said that goes back to your leadership and Sean and his encouragement of that. But you're right. We're all right in saying, I think you've all mentioned it now, having leadership that endorses that business development time spent, because a lot of firms don't, and a lot of managers and leaders don't value the BD aspect, or they just expect their engineers and their architects to do all the BD themselves, and they don't want to hire somebody specifically. They don't want to hire somebody specifically for BD, and I really have to shout out our principal as well, because he made a BD hire very early on. We're a very small company, still medium sized, but like a lot of firms are 100 people plus and don't have BD dedicated people. So obviously we believe it's an important role since we do it, but not everybody does.
For women considering a career in the AEC industry, what qualities or values do you recommend to look for in a company specifically? So one of the things that I saw with Gordon Highlander like I said, our mission was really something that resonated with my kind of internal mission for myself. And then kind of their values, steadfast for others, band of brothers and sisters, results, and courageously authentic. Those were things that I was like, wow, okay, so those resonate with me pretty hard. Just being courageously authentic, being truthful and transparent even when it's hard. Telling a client that, hey, this is going to cost this much more, and we know that's out of budget, but here's like talking through that and just being fully transparent. So what advice would you give to a woman who's looking for a career in the AEC industry when choosing a company to work for?
I have one. So I think looking back now, there's so many paths that you can take that, in my experience, I was a little overwhelmed. And I kept asking questions. I would, look at somebody and say, I want to be that person, and then ask them out to lunch. And I think when you're, when you're starting out, it's hard to knock on that door and set that meeting up, but it truly has paid off. So my advice is try as many things as you want to try, because there's so many opportunities out there. You just got to be willing to try. Try and fail, honestly. It's so hard, but if you don't fail, you don't grow. So putting yourself out there in an uncomfortable situation will help you grow so much. Asking the questions, understanding why things happen, finding what you truly care about, like I said, and trying to find that firm that aligns with those values. So I think a lot of us focus on our skills once we get out of school, because you're just soaking it all up and trying to get really good at, for example, in my case, drawing or designing and all these things. But eventually you gotta, kind of set your goals and, strive or set a goal that will inspire you to come in every day. Because, motivation kind of, it tapers, it goes, comes and goes. So having that overall goal and staying very flexible in your approach, because it never works out like you expected it to, I think has been my biggest lesson so far. So be a go-getter, ask the questions, stay flexible, have a great attitude. I think a lot of people don't understand what good attitude gets you, and it's more about just what you know. It's, are you honestly interested in architecture? Are you interested in the project you're working on? Are you willing to do all these things to get the client a better result? So I think it's a bunch of, again, different things that play into it, but that's been my experience so far.
I would encourage any woman to get involved in the industry. I know a lot of times they're like, no, it's just what guys do, but there's more and more women in our industry. And I know, like, for Women in Construction Week, it's always so exciting to see the numbers. Like, we have 48% females in the office, or, I always look forward to that every year when all the social media posts come. As far as firms, I would say, if you're somebody who's a people person, or you want to do philanthropic things, then maybe hop on their social media and their website and just kind of research, take some time. Do they do these things? Does it align with your values? Does it make sense? Because there's a lot of companies out there. So that means there's a lot of choice that we have. Right. So I would say kind of find those things that you are passionate about, and then try to find that firm that matches up.
Yeah. And I would agree with you, Amber, mentioning finding a company that aligns with your personal values, because at the end of the day, it is work, right? We still go home and we have lives outside of work. And if your company is not aligning with what you believe to your core as a person, meaning, the authenticity, the transparency, just being a good person, being a decent person, you're probably not going to be long-term happy there, no matter the pay, no matter how prestigious it is. So more important for me than the actual, what the work is, whether it's an architecture firm, a GC, or a subcontractor, make sure that you're on board with their leadership and it's someone that you actually want to work for. Because I know when I made the switch, it was definitely less about the engineering and the MEP and what we did, and more about the leadership and the support and the advocacy that I knew I was going to get.
You just reminded me of something that I might have heard on one of your other panels, which is funny, but especially women in our field, I think I never realized it, and now I do. There's seasons of life, right? Like you were saying, we all have lives outside of this industry, but for women specifically, there's so many roles we play, and everything it's just like the seasons. Sometimes you're very focused at work and you're growing your career, but then you have kids and you have to focus on something else. There's trying to find a balance would be my next piece of advice, maybe, to, somebody getting out of school, really focus in on your work. It'll eventually slow down. It'll pick back up eventually. And it just goes up and down, right?
Yeah.
So trying to find balance within all the different roles that we play, and keeping up with your mental health care and mental health, I think is one thing that not a lot of people talk about, especially for women. So
I'll kind of share my experience. I never thought I'd be working construction. I kind of fell into it. And I was lucky enough to, and especially where I'm at now, but to experience really good people around me that would help me kind of understand. I didn't go to school for construction. I didn't know what a GC was when I first graduated college, right? And so I'm looking at the websites but I was interested because it seemed like a challenge. And then once I was on board, I definitely asked a lot of questions, and men and women have helped me to kind of learn all of the things I never learned in school that you need to know when being in construction. So I think most of the time you just got to find, I would set aside, I think, like 30 minutes every Friday, and I would go ask someone that knew, whether they were in pre-con, or I'd go on site and see a superintendent or a project manager, and I would just ask all of the questions. And everyone I went to was super receptive and was excited that I was excited about it. And so you kind of get there's this misconceived notion that women aren't interested in construction, or that it's not the best career path, but I totally disagree. It's been awesome to see how other people around myself, specifically in the industry, have been so eager to help teach and help me learn. Still learning. So, yeah.
To piggyback off of that, I've probably been on job sites more in the last few months than I have in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And I know we've seen all the my guys know that I'm going to ask all the questions.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're going to get tired of this. And they're like, no, we won't. I'm like, well, you will, I promise. Yeah. I'm going to get tired. But at one point I said, I'm kind of embarrassed. I should just know this. And I'll never forget it. And Oscar said, Andrea, why would you just know this? He goes, we didn't know this. Just, you have to learn it at some point. So he was like, don't be embarrassed. Yeah. And that makes you feel good to then continue asking the questions. So, but yeah, I mean, they're exactly what you said. They're excited that we're excited. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
It's usually the smartest person in the room asking all the questions. And that's something that people, especially younger girls, may be intimidated by, is that you're afraid to speak up in class or in a group, and you don't want to ask questions, even in a networking event. But the people that are asking the questions are genuinely curious and they want to learn. So I always try and remind myself of that when I feel like I'm going to look stupid if I ask a question. And it's just because you don't know. And then chances are everybody else in the room doesn't know either.
Right.
So you better ask for the group.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I try and remind myself of that.
Benefits and enjoyment of working in construction. So what do you love most about working in the construction industry?
I'll start. I like how much it varies. Let's put it that way. So we work on a lot of different project types, which allows me to work on a retail building one day and then multifamily. I used to do, high-rise office, but then the market changed. So I don't think I'll ever get tired of doing this because it's so different. You're never not learning something new. So the idea of, having different project types within the industry that you can always pivot to, and also the client relationships. Everybody's looking for something different. Some people are trying to put their brand and, do more branding. Some people are just trying to get something well done efficiently, like an industrial project out. So I think catering to different needs keeps me on my toes. And the fact that within the construction industry, I'm not only sitting in front of a computer all day long, we're doing this today. and then I'll go home and then design an office building. And then, we do plans and technical stuff. And then you're out on a site because, sub told us about a paint and we didn't use that paint. And then we switched the paint. So we got to figure out the paint. So it's just so, different every day that I love that. I couldn't imagine a place where you would just have to sit and do the same thing over and over again. So construction is very exciting.
I think I have two things. Like, I love people.
Yeah.
I mean, if we didn't have these people in this industry, it wouldn't be worth it. Like, I love the people. I love seeing what they want to design. I love building relationships. I love connecting people. So I think the people is probably my number one. My number two is I like driving around town and being like, oh, I know about this and I know about this, or I had a part in that, or, oh, I know what's going to be happening over here, So it's kind of, I feel like we have the inside scoop of like what's going on in the DFW area.
Yeah. I wanted to add to that, because you just reminded me of something. So O'Brien Architects, our slogan is make OMG moments. And part of that, to me, when you said people, resonated because we were working on a renovation that was tough, and we went into the building once it was done. And one of the clients started playing music and dancing in the space. So they were just so happy. And in my head, I was like, at that point, it wasn't about the building. It wasn't about the design. It wasn't about anything but the people in the space and how you're collaborating to put that experience out onto the web.
How you contributed to the happiness in the moment.
Yes.
It's really cool.
Does that help? Yeah, sure. That's cool.
I would say seeing the direct impact that you have on the clients or the end users. For us, we do a lot of K through 12 school builds. And so I know that, again, I'm not doing the design work myself, but I know that when we provide those MVP designs to the architect and they build the school, that's having a direct impact on the next generation. And those kids, we're providing a space, helping provide a space for those kids to learn and grow and ask questions and be the next generation of leaders. And that's very, very impactful when you narrow it down and remind yourself why you do what you do. And I think it's helpful to keep that perspective because you don't have to be particularly passionate, for me, about engineering, but you do have to be passionate about helping people and who you're impacting. So I don't focus on the actual, MEP design, although that is what I'm promoting in TD. Of course, that's what we do. But think about big picture, who you're helping and how you're impacting the world around you.
Yeah, I love that. Like you said, it's fun to drive down the highway and be like, oh, we did that project. Every time my husband sees, like, you've told me 50 times. Then it'll look good, babe. Yeah.
Doesn't get old.
Is there a moment for y'all that you can think of that made you feel most proud? Yours is probably you're ahead of me. You read my mind. Is there a moment for you, Andrea or Lydia, that you feel made you most proud to work in the construction industry?
I think something for me is being able to coach my people in my team that I work with, or outside people that I've done some mentoring with. But when I can watch them grow, that's huge. Like you mentioned earlier, everyone in the office is business development. So when I can give a few little tips and suggestions to people in the office and then they do it, it's like, yes, like this is why I gave those tips and suggestions, So it's nice to see people just not be stagnant and continue growing in their career and everything.
And knowing you played a part.
Yeah.
I would say mine happened very, very recently, going back to the architect that I met in my previous role and sent me the request for proposal right away when I started in this role. Well, I just got the opportunity to go and see that site in its construction. They had their grand opening, their ribbon cutting and all that. And that for me was a full circle moment because I saw, from proposal to design to completion to construction to grand opening, this is how it happened. And I played a role in that because I built the relationship with that architect. It happened to be a coffee shop, so they were giving away free coffee, which was a bonus. Yeah, absolutely, it was a bonus. But that gave me the sense of okay, I can do my job. It's empowering because you're like, I can do my job. I just did it. Look at this building that's here. I didn't do the design, of course, but I made the relationships and I made it happen in a sense. So that was very empowering for me.
Well, happy Women in Construction Week. I just want to thank you all three for being here. I think there's been so many great key takeaways, and I'm thankful for each of your times and insights and knowledge and everything. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.